Okay, how about now? Hopefully everybody can hear me. I really hope that's okay. And I'm just going to bump it down a little bit because I think I was hitting the red. I'm very confused by the new live stream interface on YouTube. It's been a while since I've done a live stream. Hopefully you guys can hear me now. Let's go back here. And thank you for letting me know, Thornos, about the volume. Can you guys hear me now? Hopefully you can. Okay. Awesome. Cool. All right. So welcome, and thanks for being on. I'm going to repeat most of what I said, hopefully, and then we'll make a start. So I'm really excited to be back. Had to take a little bit of a break. Been working on building our house and just doing a bunch of work in the garden and doing prep work for the building and all this kind of stuff. So it's been super busy. School has started, so it's been early mornings, lots of driving around, kids, whatever. Anyway, it's been nuts. I'm really happy to be here. Today is a special event for me anyway, because yesterday was actually my 4th year anniversary as a vegan. So I'm super excited about that. I'm not doing what I have done in the past, which was a trail run to celebrate. I didn't get time to do that. I'll hopefully do that this weekend, but for now, hopefully you guys can enjoy this video instead of my usual trail run type celebration video. So yeah, I want to get into a couple of things to share with you guys today. As the title says, I want to talk about saving the world. And what I genuinely, honestly, wholeheartedly feel is a solution to many of the world's problems through, vegan activism and actually kind of aligning our actions with our ethics. And, I want to talk about things that we as individuals can do, because I think a lot of times it's really kind of hard and scary looking out into the world and thinking that we're completely helpless. Like, I get discouraged sometimes just from seeing the apathy and the lack of change, at a high level, like government-wise or country-wise or stuff like that. So I'm always thinking globally, but trying to act locally, and that's what I'm gonna be talking a little bit about today. So thanks for being on. Really appreciate everybody watching. And I'm going to get right into it, and let me share my screen with you guys so we can get into it. Cool, and let me know if you guys can hopefully see it. I've got a couple of articles that I want to talk about, and just a few things that are going on and my take on them. So as probably everyone who hasn't been living under a rock the past few weeks has seen, Greta Thunberg has been just getting, massive coverage in the news for her activism and speaking out about climate change and the climate emergency. And she's sailed in a boat across the ocean and gone to New York, and she's addressed the United Nations and just, made wonderful speeches. And her inspiration has led to a number of climate strikes throughout the world. There have been just many cities all throughout the world that have been following her lead. And I just can't say enough good things about her. I just find her to be so inspiring, and she's awesome. But sadly, as I said, there are many discouraging things in the news about her as well. People have just been, slagging her off and just talking all sorts of trash about her, which is completely unfounded in every case that I've seen. And they are just being really mean-spirited and trying to attack her because of, her Asperger's or anything else, or her age, or her passion. I mean, people are just really crazy, and I just find it really annoying. So this article is interesting. It was just talking about her response to critics, and people kind of attacking her for being different. And she's basically saying that she doesn't care, and she's going to continue on. And she's saying that her advocacy and activism has really given her something to look forward to, and been able to come out of being, I guess really in kind of a difficult situation. Like socially, she wasn't very communicative with people, and she was able to overcome those things because she feels like she has to make a stance. And absolutely, Green Smoothie Party is great. She's just awesome. I really like her. So yeah, so basically, this was an interesting article, but that's not really what I wanted to cover. in the end of this article, there was this slideshow, and this is kind of one of those things where I think it's like the thing I was just saying, like the discouraging stuff, the scary stuff, where you just see this kind of thing and wonder what kind of future we will have at all for our children, or even for ourselves, really, because I think for anybody who's under 50, like I really worry that within the next 15, 20 years we're going to start seeing some really major bad stuff happening, because these things are kind of already in play, and it's really hard to reverse course on these things. It takes a long time. So these pictures in this slideshow really kind of hit me pretty hard, and they're pretty devastating. So this is just talking about, I'm not going to go through every one of them because that would just take a long time, but I encourage everybody to look through this slideshow and see the kind of the impact. And anybody who's on the fence, if you're watching this and you're like, oh, climate change is a hoax, or like it's just nonsense or whatever, look around, talk to people that are impacted by it already. It's not something that's going to happen. It's already happening. We're already in it. This is kind of scary stuff, like severe droughts in South Africa. They're saying they haven't seen this level in I guess pretty much ever, but they're saying severe drought in the city. This is the Alps not having snow. Like, I guess there's like skiing, areas that are now basically stuck like without snow, and they're having to make artificial snow. This is the Dead Sea. Basically, the water's disappearing. Like, it's just totally evaporating and being used off for industrial purposes. Ivory Coast being impacted. High erosion, anything that has anything to do with coastal areas, people are just being devastated. Obviously, the Amazon has been on fire for like weeks. People have been seeing that. There has been a lot of press coverage for that. The vast majority of that can be attributable directly to animal agriculture. People are clearing land so they can either graze cattle directly or grow feed, which is then fed to cattle. Some really striking figures if you look into how much of the world's beef, meat is produced in Brazil. I can't remember the exact statistic. You can look it up. I think it's something close to like 50% of the world's beef is produced there. So I mean, it's some huge, staggering number, and it's just shocking what's happening there. And people, when they see it, they're getting kind of worried, as they rightfully should. Flooding in Italy. Coral reefs dying, grape regions being affected. Look at these dust storms in Sudan. I mean, the list goes on and on. These pictures are just absolutely shocking. I highly encourage people to look through them. I mean, people are already being displaced. And, it's just absolutely crazy. Like, you look at this sinkhole. This is, what is this? Permafrost is melting in Russia's far north. The weather has become increasingly unpredictable. Giant craters pictured are forming as the frozen ground started thawing. So, I mean, just crazy stuff is happening. Like, obviously the sea ice is melting. Alaska is facing immense pressure, more wildfires. Just crazy, crazy stuff. They had an outbreak of a tropical disease in Italy. Just insane stuff. I mean, like the Mumbai flooding, just crazy stuff. You should definitely look through these slides. Now, enough of the negative stuff. I didn't want to focus that much on it in this, but going back to this idea that Greta is being basically mocked and like derided for her advocacy, I was actually absolutely flabbergasted at the fact that Trump has openly mocked her on Twitter. This was in the past, I think, day or two. He basically mocked her speech that she gave, where she was very clearly, on the verge of tears and super upset, and basically, telling the leaders of the world that things need to change, otherwise they're robbing her of her future and future generations, the livelihood and just being able to basically live on a habitable planet. And he mocked her. So he tweeted out this phrase, "She seems like a very happy young girl looking forward to a bright and wonderful future. So nice to see." Obviously very sarcastic and rude. And I mean, I've already said, the way I feel about Trump many times in live streams and, just various videos. But to see this level of vitriol and just, I don't even know what to say. This is just beyond words. It's absolutely disgusting. And I guess, you know, she took it in stride. She actually took his wording and changed her, I think her Twitter bio or something. I think it was, her Twitter bio to basically these words saying that she's a very happy young girl looking forward to a bright future and wonderful, bright and wonderful future. So, you know, kudos to her for not giving in to these kind of bullies, because that's what he is. I mean, that's what I think anybody is who attacks her. Nobody has even tried to refute any of the science that she cites. I mean, she's not a scientist. She always even says she shouldn't even have to be there. People should be listening to the scientists. And in every case of people attacking her that I've seen, it's like these typical like troll moron, just, I mean, ill-meaning, bad-spirited people that are just like, they're like, you know, anything you point out to them that's like a scientific research paper, they're like, oh, that's commie propaganda, you know, and it's like, they just refuse to look at anything that's like science-based. It's really crazy. So very frustrating. But anyway, kudos to Greta. So just wanted to start with that. Next, I wanted to talk about what we can do, again, as individuals and also just as vegans, like what kind of impact we can have on the world. There is a awesome guy I follow on Twitter. His name is Andrew. Go check out his account. I'll have the links for everything that I'm showing here at the end in the description, so check that out. And if you're on Twitter, follow him. I was just blown away by this tweet that he had put up. This was earlier, a couple of weeks ago. There was a report that came out in April of this year, which I had missed, and I just saw it through his post. But they are basically saying that I think it was Harvard study, or was it Cambridge? It was Harvard University study came out and said that the UK can convert animal farmland to forest and still grow enough protein as well as help combat climate change. They're basically saying, the synopsis here is that they can actually get rid of animal agriculture and rewild areas, grow enough forest, and still grow enough food that they could be self-sufficient and reduce their carbon emissions like hugely. So this was an awesome study. They did two scenarios. One of the scenarios, here it is, where was it? The first maximizes CO2 removal by returning pasture land and cropland used to grow animal feed back to forest. This removes the same amount of CO2 as 12 years of the UK's current emissions. I mean, that's an astounding figure. So as you know, all industrialized countries, like, they produce so much CO2. The UK is no exception. And to be able to reduce 12 years of that, I mean, that's huge. Hi, Angela. Thanks for joining, and welcome. Nice. Vancouver, BC. Cool. Nice. I mean, that's just a great figure to see. And in the second scenario, what they did is they didn't rewild all of the current, basically pasture land and cropland used to feed animals. What they did was they took some of that and they changed it and diversified it to produce like vegan plant food. So they did fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, grains, and pulses for the UK population. And what they said was that this removes CO2 equivalent to 9 years of the current emissions. And it's just really awesome. And they basically said that scenario 2 maximizes the opportunity to produce more fruits, vegetables, and pulses to help meet changing consumer demands for more plant-based foods and help address the mass underconsumption of the 5-a-day fruit and vegetables recommendation. And the UK would be self-sufficient under this scenario. So imagine that an area as big as the UK would be able to produce all the food they need without having to import stuff, without having to waste even more fossil fuels to import the food that the people need to eat, simply by just switching the existing land that's already there and being used for animal agriculture. I opened up the PDF, and I will be honest, because Andrew had linked the full research paper. I haven't actually read the full research paper. I've just skimmed through it. I will be trying to read through this if I have a bit of time, but I definitely encourage people to check this out. It has awesome data, really great figures, and lots of references, and everything is cited that they are claiming. Absolutely, it sounds promising, Angela. I think this is really the way forward, and when people actually start seeing this on larger and larger scales, I think more and more countries will be kind of, I don't know, in a way forced to follow this this development, because they're going to see the benefits as people adopt yeah, basically like a vegan crop rotation and growing. So the charts that I wanted to show you guys here, this is what I wanted to focus on. They show you kind of the spatial distribution where things are used for pasture land, and then they also show you where the land is used for crops. But they also point out that 55% of the crops used are used for animal feed. So here it is for animal agriculture, 55%. So it's just an astounding, figure. More than half, well over half of the plants that are grown. So not even counting the pasture land, but just the plants that are grown, 55% of that is fed to animals. It's incredibly inefficient. I think in the article they mentioned it as well, but it's something like 12% of the calories that go into feeding animals actually makes it to people. It's incredibly inefficient. You could just be growing plants to feed the people directly, which is what vegans have been saying all along. So they're basically saying like the cropland that could be restored to forest in scenario 1. And then they're also saying the cropland area, which could be remained left alone and used for human food. And then they show you what that would look like as far as like, green and forests and all this kind of stuff. So this is where they're getting all of the carbon dioxide savings. It's from all the trees and the wild, marsh and, all the wild areas basically. Think of also, how much this would help to restore biodiversity and wildlife that's currently under pressure and close to extinction. I mean, this would just be huge. Like, think of the beautiful green woods and wild areas that you would have in the area of the UK. So just awesome stuff. Check out this report, and I encourage everybody to read through it. I myself haven't read through it yet, I will be honest, but it looks fascinating and definitely worthwhile to check this out. Angela says, I believe there will come a day when using animals to produce food will be as unimaginable as smoking in a maternity ward. I absolutely hope so, and I agree. And it should be looked upon that way because it is something to be left in the past. So, again, hey Leon, welcome. Good to see you. It's been a while since I've done one of these. I also want to say again, what can we do as individuals? Because obviously, this is great to see that, critical analysis has been done. This isn't just somebody's opinion. This is a published, reviewed paper by Harvard. So it should be taken seriously. It should be something that can be used for advocacy. But again, we don't have the ability to just force the UK to do this. This is a scenario that shows you what is possible, but this won't be something that we can just flick a switch and boom, it's going to happen. This is going to take a lot of advocacy and people going out there and actually showing that this works on smaller scales than it will get rolled out. And this is also, of course, why I'm a little bit worried about what will happen in the future, because a lot of these things, like I say, take time, and that's what I worry about. But why I say we do have the power to do things on our own is that we can make changes ourselves. We can start growing our own food in our own backyards. If you're lucky enough to have any kind of land around your house that you can use, that is something that we should be doing. We should, if you have a lawn, don't have a lawn, have a garden. If you live in an apartment in the city, see if you can get involved with a community garden. There's lots and lots of community gardens popping up in cities all over the world. There's places here in Budapest as well, so it's definitely going on throughout the world, and I encourage everybody to get involved. The littlest thing you can do, grow some herbs, spices, just some little cherry tomatoes or stuff. Those will grow great in an apartment. You don't even really need much of anything, and anything you can do to reduce your reliance on having to get stuff shipped from around the world, or even from just a couple hundred miles away, that is a huge help. And I think that is something that we can all do. And on a previous live stream, I've talked about a great effort being put in by Gina Bates. Follow her on Twitter. She is basically in the process of creating the first veganic croft, which is a Highland farm in Scotland. So she's going to be making the first vegan croft in the Scottish Highlands, and she is basically crowdsourcing and getting money from people all over the world to get trees planted. She wants to make hazelnut like trees and get harvests of those nuts for making plant proteins, milks, etc., and to show that it is economically viable. She's right in the middle of basically the highlands where all these other pastures people are what do you call it, pasturing sheep on these lands. They have decimated the woods there in these areas, and she's going to be taking a huge part of the land that she bought, which was a working, operating, sheep farm. And obviously now, she's not going to be exploiting sheep on there anymore. She's going to plant the hazelnut trees in a sizable area. She's going to do a veganic green growing and other kind of gardening in some areas, and then she's going to rewild a bunch of a bunch of the farm. And it's a huge effort. I can't say enough good things about her. Go follow her on Twitter. Donate if you can. I've talked before about the Global Vegan funder site. Go check that out. Her project is on there. You can submit your own. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this is that, this is exactly like a small miniature version of what I just showed you guys in the, in the report. If you can point to somebody who's done this on a one farm scale and shown, like, look, I've increased the forest, I've increased the number of wildlife, the biodiversity, the wildflowers, the bees, the birds, everything, and still being able to do a economically viable option where I can feed my family, run a farm based on veganic principles, restore soil, stop soil erosion from the animals basically trotting down all the the soil, and also, like, even if it's not just animal based agriculture, like large scale monocropping is also a huge problem. So even if we are just talking about wheat or other kinds of things, if it's monocropped, if people aren't doing proper rotations, getting cover crops in there, clover and other kinds of things that are nitrogen fixing, if we're just using all petroleum based or artificial fertilizers or animal manures, we're basically stripping off the topsoil and ruining what's there. So kudos to Gina. Anybody who can, please consider contributing to her efforts. And she's got a YouTube channel as well. I'll link that as well. Sign up. It's called Highland Veganics. She's just started out. She's got a couple videos up of the actual farm that she's doing. So you can see the efforts. She's going to be putting up videos about the trees that are getting planted. You'll be able to see them grow. I hope that she's going to maintain the site for years to come, and you'll be able to see your direct action and donation at work. And basically I just want to finish here kind of on this positive note that you can take resources like this, like the Global Vegan crowdfunder, and find projects that are already out there, or you can fund your own. Maybe you can look for land that is going to be being sold, shut down an old farm, save those animals, maybe even try to find some way that you can turn it into an animal sanctuary, or rewild part of it and grow something like this. So I just, I'm an optimistic person by nature. Like, I really want to be able to stay, optimistic, but in the face of all that, is bad in the world. And it's kind of hard sometimes, but I think it's really important to see these kinds of opportunities out there, and just try to do what you can. I think that's pretty much what I wanted to cover. Let me switch back the camera here. Hopefully you guys can see me now. And let's see what are comments here. Oh, thanks, Leon. Thank you very much for the congratulations. I feel great. Great news from the Netherlands too. Farmers are under pressure to quit. Angela asks, who is doing the pressuring? I would imagine it's probably consumers. That's what I always kind of think is the most important thing we can do as individuals, is to vote with our wallets. If we put our money where our mouth is, we're able to exert a lot of pressure on these companies. If you see the past few months have been incredible strides throughout, even really, really big companies. I mean, we've had the vegan options in fast food chains, the White Castle, the Burger King, the whatever. McDonald's has toyed with it. I mean, there's vegan options coming up every single place, like all over the world. So, even here in Hungary, like I've been living here since 2010, and I can tell you when I came to visit, Hungary in years before that, like back in the late 90s or early 2000s, I mean, there were no vegan options. I wasn't a vegan, so I wasn't really looking for it, but I mean, I remember at that time even like just having like vegetarian friends and stuff, and they could barely find anything even vegetarian on the menu. I mean, it's like a really meat-based kind of culture. And now there's like vegan options all over the place. There's fully vegan restaurants all throughout the city. There seems to be like a new one opening every month or so, and it's awesome. So if things are changing here, things can change everywhere, I would say. Oh, hey Sarah, thank you. Yes, here's Saving the World, absolutely. Everybody go check out Conscientious Sarah as well on Twitter. She's awesome. Leon says, there was a lawsuit about nitrogen pollution a while ago that made the government and consumers have a look on the influence of farmers. Yeah, that's a huge thing, Leon, because if you look at the environmental impact of these large animal agriculture industries, what they're able to do is basically subsidize their costs by socializing the expense of cleaning up all their waste. So the fact that you have these pig farmers in like North Carolina in the U.S., these huge areas are literally being sprayed with, pig waste and effluent just being thrown out into the air, giving people in that area higher rates of asthma, cancer, all sorts of diseases and illnesses. And it's usually in poor communities. Usually, people of color living there. They're extremely exploited. Like that's another point that a lot of people think like, oh, you care more about animals, but it's a human rights issue as well. The people that live near these farms, they're being destroyed, they're being poisoned, and all of the waste that flows downstream, killing the fish, killing the livelihoods of people who even eat fish. Like it's just a crazy, vicious cycle, and it's just insane. Let's see what other comments. The reason I asked is that I was wondering if the government was not as supportive, asks Angela. It's almost coming from the government right now. Oh, it's mostly coming from the government. Oh, that's good. One of our parties already proposed to reduce pig and cattle farming by 50%. That's awesome. I didn't prepare it. I didn't bring the link, but I just saw that there was a petition to get a vote in Switzerland to ban factory farming altogether. I didn't read the details, so I didn't prepare to bring that, but if anybody wants to, you can check that out. I think more and more countries are going to be forced to look at these kinds of things and deal with these consequences, because people are getting fed up, and I think if we organize and get political, we can affect change. And it's awesome. I remember getting comments, I think from you, Leon, and a few other people as well, that there are various animal rights political parties throughout Europe now. I think we can vote for these people. I was a little bit disappointed with Cory Booker in the past week. I read that they put a question to him about should everybody go vegan, and he pretty much just floundered that question. But I'm still hopeful that just having people as candidates that are vegan themselves, that's already a positive thing. And you can get involved in like local government. Like Ryan from Happy Healthy Vegan, he's doing that. I think he's going to be running for office. And I think the more we do this, and again, if we can point to successful business ventures that are actually paying off financially, you're going to be able to convince, another sheep farmer. So I know Gina has been talking to the farmers, in the surrounding area, like right around her, and some of them have expressed interest. I've covered stories in the past where, you had dairy farmers who gave up, generations old, family farm to basically, do veganic growing instead, because they got tired of selling off the cows when they were done producing milk to the slaughterhouse, and they didn't want to do it, and it was taking an emotional toll on them. You have to realize that I think most people, they really have to be indoctrinated heavily to get to the point that they can be okay with taking an animal to the slaughterhouse. Farmers always say that they care about their animals to some extent. Like I actually believe them. I'm sure that they would rather have some kind of way to make money that didn't involve killing their furry little things. They have to like harden their hearts and basically think of them as not friends and pets. They have to literally put that aside and think of them as just commodities to be exploited, because they need to make money and they need to feed their families. And if we can show them that, look, you can do that without the exploitation, and maybe even if it's more economically viable, which I believe it very well might be, especially if we end government subsidies to these industries, then they will be kind of really forcing the hands of farmers, because as it is, many of them are barely just clinging on because the economics are so bad and so tight. And it's just really the large scale companies that are able to do it. All the small family farms that are not factory farms, they're really not making much money. So I think this is definitely the way forward, and that's the way to do it. Let's see. Have the animal industry tried to fight back? Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Yep. So cool, guys. I think that's all I have for today. So if anybody has any questions, I'll maybe stay on for a couple minutes. But other than that, I'm gonna go off to bed. It's a school night here, so I've been pretty tired lately. Let's see. Angela says, I decided to go vegan when I met the Mad Cowboy back in 2004. He's the fellow that was sued along with Oprah. Yeah. Lyman. What's the guy's name? Something Lyman. That guy's awesome. I found him incredibly inspiring as well. I had already been vegan by the time I'd seen him, but that's really cool that you got to meet him, Angela. He's a pretty passionate and outspoken advocate. I really like him. I can't remember his first name, but anyway, if anybody isn't familiar with him, check it out. If you just search the Mad Cowboy, he's got I think a book, or maybe even a couple books, and he's a very, very good spokesperson for veganism, and talking about what he didn't like about factory farming, and he also had that emotional toll. So definitely check him out. He's cool. Hey, Plantain. What made me become vegan? So if anybody doesn't know, I actually have kind of a funny story about what made me be vegan, but I did a video about this too. It's for my second anniversary. I did a video about it on a trail run, but the short and skinny of it is that my son, when he was about 2 years old, he pretty much stopped eating meat altogether. And at that time we were still very much eating meat and all sorts of animal products. I thought that you needed that stuff for health, and I was absolutely convinced about a well-rounded diet, and I ate dairy and eggs and all sorts of stuff. And he stopped eating meat, and my wife and I were like really concerned that like he's going to be having nutritional like deficiencies and problems and all this kind of stuff. And we tried everything. So like we would try to like sneak meat into his like foods and like puree things and like all sorts of stuff, and he just refused to eat it. If anything had meat in it, he just wouldn't eat it. Didn't matter what kind of form it was in, soup, whatever, he would refuse to eat it. And this went on for quite some time, and then when he was about 3, like I was like getting really concerned, because he was getting like just like eating fewer and fewer things, and it was just more and more kind of like scary, thinking that like he's gonna have some kind of problems. And I started doing like way more research, and just started looking into the nutritional kind of like problems you might have from not eating meat. And the more I researched, the more I saw that like, well, not only are you not going to have problems not eating meat, you're actually going to have health benefits most likely if you replace them with like whole foods and fruits and veggies. And then I became more and more convinced that that you can be healthy and be just as healthy or even healthier as a vegan, eating like a whole food plant-based diet. And once I got that kind of connection, then I started thinking like, okay, but if that's true, then what the heck are we doing this for? And I really got to the point that like, wow, this is like a huge ethical problem. Like, I'm just eating this stuff when I don't need to, and it's just completely unethical. Like, if I don't have to kill animals, what kind of justification do I have? Because up until then, my justification was simply just like, I need to. It's for my health. Like, if it's between me or a cow, like I'm going to kill the cow. But then when I learned that, like, well, it's not between me and the cow, and in fact, it's actually doing me harm to kill the cow and eat it, then yeah, like pretty much that sparked it. So I remember, again, I know the day specifically. It was, yesterday was the 4th year anniversary, because I remember coming home from work. I had watched some videos that really just kind of put me over the edge of like, okay, I gotta at least try being a vegan, like on a diet. Is I saw, I think it was a Freely Banana, the Banana Girl video, where she talked about, I think it was a response to Russell Brand, if I remember right, about vegetarianism, and she showed not slaughter footage. Sorry, she showed footage of the dairy industry and the egg industry, and those two things were the things that like really kind of like just like got me, because I saw that it wasn't a case of just like animal abuse, where like sometimes you see these videos from like PETA or other organizations where like somebody's just being directly abusive to the animal. It's not part of the process. It's just somebody, kicking an animal or doing stuff like that. And that is like really bad, obviously, but I always kind of push those out of my mind with the thought that like, well, that's just a bad apple. That's not how it is. That's not the industry. That's just somebody who's like, like taking out their stress at their job or whatever. And when you see the cruelty inherent in the system of dairy production and egg production, you see the baby chicks getting macerated, and the cows being impregnated and the babies ripped away from them and all this kind of stuff. That really just did it for me. I was like, wow. This is not just a bad apple. It's not a case of just somebody doing abuse. This is systemic abuse. This is, abuse on a huge scale. And, somebody sat there and thought up like the macerator for the chicks, and somebody approved it and they built it. And, it's like, it's legally permissible. And once I got to that point, it was just like, man, I got to try like a vegan diet. I'll give it like 3 months, see how I feel. And if it's good, then I'll stick on it. And I remember I went home that day, and I just, I talked to my wife, and I was like, yeah, I think I got to try like a vegan diet and see how I feel. And she was really supportive, and basically like after 3-4 weeks, I mean, I really got into it, and it was just like, yeah, like feel amazing, like vegan for life, done. Like, so it was really cool. Let's see. Okay, yeah, Angela says, about the Mad Cowboy. He had a book and a video documentary. ZE says, what should we all be doing to get veganism in the news or mainstream media? That's a really interesting question. I actually kind of got into a Twitter battle recently with somebody who's I think he's a sheep farmer from New Zealand or someplace. But he was like really trying to troll me about activists who go and do things that are actually illegal. So like storming farms, or in some cases, I guess, vandalism or whatever. Although I have pointed out to him, and I still maintain that I haven't seen a legitimate proof of any vegans committing vandalism. So like, I haven't seen that, honestly. But even if it were the case, that was what he was trying to get me to condemn and say, whether I condemn that or stand with it. And, my take on this is that, as long as it's peaceful, I'm actually in support of any kind of activism, because, you need people basically getting this stuff out in the news. And I think, when you have civil disobedience for any kind of cause in the past, that has always affected change. That has always worked. People sitting around and being polite and not saying and doing things that, like, I guess, tick people off, that may work, but it's going to take like 100 times longer. I myself try to do the nice, happy, kind of approach, because I find it works well, and that's kind of in my nature. I'm not an angry kind of screaming person, but I know for some people that has helped them change. I mean, you look at a Vegan Gains, video, and it's like just countless comments of people saying like, you're what made me go vegan. And he was very much, back in the day, like one of these angry, kind of like shouting type activists. So I think there's room for, all sorts of activism. I don't take issue with any kind of activism as long as it's not violent. So I think like attacking people physically or stuff like that, that's definitely beyond what I would support. I would condemn that. But I would not condemn, somebody for like going on a farm and showing the abuse. In all the cases I've seen so far of activists shutting down farms and getting themselves arrested, there has been video proof of abuse and breaking the law, what little there is to protect animal rights and welfare on those farms. So in the case of the direct action people in California, I know that they were using a I guess like a clause of the law that it's okay to enter somebody's private property if you believe that you're stopping like animal abuse. And that's what they had always tried to use in their defense of storming these farms. Now, do I think that it's as effective as some other types of activism? Maybe not. I don't know. And we can argue about that, but I certainly wouldn't discourage anybody if that's the form that they want to take, as long as they're nonviolent. Again, that's where I would draw the line. But I think street activism is great. I think there's more and more Anonymous for the Voiceless type organizations all over the place. They have them here in Hungary as well. I think those are great. I think just blogging, websites, social media, anything you do. I in my personal life, have got a few people to go vegan just from talking to them at work. I was recently just talking to a former coworker, and he's kind of like leaning that way now. One of his childhood friends went vegan, and now he's kind of more leaning that way, and he's eating vegan once or twice a week and stuff like that. So it's great. You can just do any kind of activism and just try talking to people. Call the news to report on animal marches. Right now they mostly ignore it, but call them enough and they can't do that anymore, says Leon. I think that's I have kind of a negative view about mainstream media. So I think like mainstream media is pretty much just a propaganda arm of the people in power and the companies in power. So I have little hope for them doing the right thing and reporting on things. But if nothing else, I think when things trend on Twitter, for example, or other social media, when there's stuff like that, if nothing else, they have to kind of report on that, because it's you can't ignore it forever. So I would definitely agree with you, Leon, there, that I think if there's enough of a critical mass, like it can no longer be ignored forever, and then they're forced to do it. And even if they try to put a negative spin on it, at least it's still getting it out there. And even things like Fox News, they've had people on there who have been really good spokespeople for veganism, and even if they're tried to paint them in a bad light or whatever, they do get at least a few seconds to present veganism in a positive way, and I think that's good. So yeah, they can't beat the truth forever. So that's I think I just saw that today in a Twitter post somebody shared. I think it was attributed to the Buddha. It said like 3 things can't be hidden forever or for long, something like that. It was the sun, the moon, and truth. So I like that. That was pretty cool. Let's see. Angela says that's an inspiring story. Thank you very much, Angela. Leon, having thousands of people do an animal rights march on the news should be very impressive. Absolutely. And there are big marches happening all throughout the world. So I know in the UK there have been a couple, and I'm sure the next one that comes up, if anybody hasn't been on one yet, go and take part. An empathetic conscience. Yep. Leon, if we see an animal in distress, hurt or sick, aren't we also allowed to vandalize what we need to get them out of that situation? It's allowed for a dog in a hot car in the U.S., as far as I know. I agree with that, personally, absolutely. I think most legal kind of protections should be there, but the problem is that a lot of countries don't afford those same kind of protections that you would for like a dog. Or obviously like a child. If you saw a child in a car, you would absolutely be justified in smashing the window and taking it out if you saw that they were left in a hot day in the car. But I think the farm animals aren't afforded those same protections, so it's a lot harder to use that as a as a kind of justification or a cover. But I think the more people put that forward, the more, again, the legal system won't be able to ignore it forever either. So I think that's really good. Yeah, Angela, yep, the mainstream media, it's just really like they have a vested interest. They have their sponsors, they have their people who put up their commercials and pay their advertising revenue, and if nothing else, they're able to control them that way. Basically, if you imagine like a McDonald's or some type of thing like that, a Kraft Foods, Nestle, whatever, like if they're paying like billions of dollars in, you know, yearly commercials to like a you know, a news channel or whatever, like they, I'm sure, have a say in how many, you know, activists get brought on or what kind of stories get spun. And yeah, it's just, it's inevitable. So that's why I really like, you know, kind of getting news from alternate sources, getting things from individuals on YouTube, Twitter, etc. So yeah, I think, like, again, that has to be always looked at with a grain of salt too, because anybody can come on YouTube like me as well and say whatever I want, and you have to take everything I say with a grain of salt too. But yeah, I think, like, if people hear it and they go and do the research themselves and read through the science, it's very clear who's in the right. Ray Sliver, hey man, they only let farm animals speak using the same mic Pal has. It's cruel. Oh, jeez, man. The mic is still bad. I actually moved the computer down under the table. I was hoping that it would be better. I don't know. I'll have to, like, think of some other way to block it off even further. Yeah, sorry, man. Sorry to disappoint you. I thought it would be better. I never thought of farm animals not having the same protections. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, it's true, Angela. And actually, the smaller farm animals have even less protections than the bigger ones. So, like, chickens have the fewest protections. They are often the, you know, the worst off, like, as far as any kind of treatment. Like, I mean, it's all bad because they're all getting killed, right? But, like, even just as far as, like, the conditions they have to endure and live through until their inevitable slaughter, like, it's the worst out of any animal. So at least for, like, cows and stuff, like, there is, like, a certain amount of stunning that is theoretically supposed to happen. Obviously, we know that there's a lot of failure rate. I've seen stats from 15% to, like, you know, in the 30% range. It's really terrible, and that's bad, but at least they, I guess, legally are kind of required to make an effort at least. And same thing with pigs, like, they're supposed to be stunned. They do use the CO2 in a lot of cases, which is horrifically cruel to them anyway. But yeah, they at least try to do stuff. But, like, with chickens, I mean, it's insane. Like there's very little protection for them, you know, at all. The water baths that are supposed to electrocute them just have, like, a really low success rate. So a lot of them are getting their throats cut or scalded alive. Like, they're just, it's insane. Like, they're fully conscious. It's crazy. Ray says it. He takes what I say with a grain of computer fan wind, not salt. It's really far away, man. I've got it under the table and my camera's up here, so it's like this is gonna be, like, I don't know, 4 feet away and under the table, but it's still really loud. Sorry, man. Okay, Leon doesn't have problems with it. That's good. I mean, it's loud in the room, but, like, I was hoping that I'm louder than the fan. So yeah, that's it, guys. I think thanks for being on. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I will try to be on, you know, more regularly, but it's still, I got a couple tough months ahead. You know, we're still very much early stages with the building, and I got a lot going on. So yeah, I'll try to do as many videos as I can, but if nothing else, at the end, I'll try to have a nice little video montage of the house getting built. And in the meantime, I'll try to post when I can and do a live stream when I can. Have I been to a farm animal vigil or whatever they are called? I haven't been to, like, a save movement type thing. Is that what you mean? Like, when they're people are, like, just saying goodbye to them at the slaughterhouse? I haven't been to that. I have been to a farm. Well, actually, it's just a general animal sanctuary. There's a really big one here in Budapest. I did a video about it a while back, and that was awesome. It was really cool. They have a lot of animals there that are rescued animals. I saw really good vegan kind of, like, propaganda flyers and posters and stuff up in the place, and I volunteered there with people from work. It was really cool. Several people from work organized it, and I signed up. This was, like, last year in the spring, and it was really cool. They have all sorts of animals there, farm animals, wild animals. They have foxes, you know, geese, ducks, chickens, goats, pigs, deer, raccoons. I mean, they had all sorts of animals. They even had wild boars, and yeah, they try to, you know, rehome what can be rehomed as far as, like, dogs and cats, and then they just take care of you know, all the other animals and let them live out their lives in peace. and it's operated under private donations and volunteers working there. We were there all day, basically like helping to feed the animals and prepare food for them and all this kind of stuff. So it was really nice. I would encourage that for everybody. And actually, that's a great point, Race, because I think if to the question of like what can we do, ZE asked what we can do. That's actually a really good thing that you can do, because if you go to one of these things, even as a vegan, it really helps reaffirm kind of like why we're vegan and what we're doing for the animals. And when you say take pictures of that and post it on your Facebook or Instagram or whatever you use for social media, that really helps, I think, people make connections with the animals. It's a lot harder to say bacon though when you see the actual pig and you see him nuzzling, and you scratch his chin, and it's really different. I think that helps a lot of people. So that's actually a really good one. Who I don't know how to pronounce your name, but welcome, Moss. Soiku, I don't know. Greetings. Race is not having it. He doesn't believe Leon about the fan noise. That's all right. Okay, you could hear me enough. That's good. As an autistic person, my whole life consists of blocking unnecessary noises, says that. Oh, man. Okay. Fair enough. The background noise doesn't bother. Okay. Don't think I could go to a visual without a fight, arrest, vandalism, and or more, says Race. Yeah, obviously, again, that's where I would say, maybe you won't, that wouldn't be a good form of activism. I think if we go to these kind of places, it really is incumbent upon us to come out on the moral high ground. Our message is it is the moral high ground, and if we go to some place like that and we're the ones, starting a fight or doing something like that, I think it's going to be painted really badly in the media against veganism, and they're already trying to smear us with so many things as it is, that I think giving them more ammunition for that would be really, really bad. So yeah, I mean, it sucks. Like, and I can fully understand why you're saying it would turn into a rescue attempt or a battle. It's terrible to see these animals and they're going to get killed. But I just think like violence against the people, that would absolutely be taken against veganism, and it would be turned into a fiasco, I think. So I think that's dangerous. If you really can't hold yourself back, then maybe just go to like an animal sanctuary. I think that would be good, because that actually leaves you with a really positive feeling afterward, I think. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's my 2 cents on that. All right. So cool. I hope everybody enjoyed it. And I think if I can do another one of these soon, I will. So hopefully everybody's good, and stick with me. I'm really excited. I've got like close to 1,000 subscribers now. We're getting up there, so that'll be cool. And really appreciate anybody watching. If you're not subscribed yet, please do sign up, and see you guys sometime soon. So thanks everybody, and yeah, see you. Bye.